Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Put Work In podcast. We got a pretty special guest with us today, Jordan, the Noble Howell. How's it
What's
going,
up?
man?
It's going pretty good.
Sweet. So, Jordan, what exactly do you do, man? I don't know anything about you, so.
For a living, I work at a South Panola School District. I've been there for about 6 years now. Work in the technology department. That's what I do for a living. And then I work for as a part of Adonai Church, one of the leading ministers there. Work a lot for the technology within the church. Play drum set for my church. Do a lot of ministry with my church. And then
Sweet.
my side gig, my little side hustle is that I am a MMA and striking coach for the All Heart Jiu-Jitsu gym in Senatobia, Mississippi. And kind of do some fights on the side.
Dang, that's crazy. So you work in like the software space, or you said IT or something at the school?
I fix all the computer. Pretty much.
So you fix all the computers and you're a fighter. What?
Yeah. I know it doesn't line
Don't
up
mess
at
them up
all.
too much.
Yeah. So how did you get into fighting then? How long have you been doing that?
I've been training for 4 years, coming up on 4
Wow.
years. Haven't hit that 4-year mark just yet. It all started actually growing up. My dad loved watching UFC, Pride, all that, Bellator. And I would just sit and watch with him. Loved it. And ever since I was a kid, it was just something I wanted to do. It was a passion I had, a dream I had. I just never had the opportunity until I was older to actually find a place to train. But it was always on my bucket list, always a dream. And now I get to live my dream and share my dream with others.
So,
Dude, that's
what's it
awesome.
like? What's it like getting hit in the mouth?
All right, so growing up, I had never been in a fight, right? I've never been punched by somebody. Just wasn't that kind of person growing up, wasn't in that kind of environment growing up. So the first day I ever show up to the gym, and like I said, it was a dream of mine. So like I was like any person, I'd watch YouTube videos and like find a punching bag at a gym and like, practice those techniques you see on YouTube. But the first day I showed up in the gym and I looked capable. They didn't know me from any other person. I just show up, 6 foot, 18-year-old kid. Well, not 18 then, but 20-year-old kid. And I'm sitting there using my footwork that I learned off YouTube. My hands are up. I look like I know what's up. And the 6'4", 230-pound boxer that they put me up against hit me one time with the jab, and my head just rocked back. And I honestly thought about giving up right then. I was like, you know what? Maybe this fighting stuff isn't for me.
Dang, bro.
Yeah, that hurt.
Oh yeah, it was a shock, honestly. Being hit in the face for the first time ever like that, with actual intent of being hit, it did something to me, man. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, if I tried talking for the rest of that evening, I was gonna bawl my eyes out as a grown man.
Whoa.
But I just kept coming back. It was something I wanted to do. It was something I knew I wanted to do. Something I always wanted to do. Kept showing up. Kept getting beat up. And now I'm here.
So, fun fact, I was actually talked into one day going to train at his gym. So I went, and I forgot what all we did. We did some drills and stuff and did some, like, I guess, not really sparring, but, just like takedown practice and stuff. So then I had to go against Jordan and take him down or do something. And this dude stocked me in the mouth. Because it was my first time, so I didn't have a mouthpiece or anything. And he's just like so used to hitting people with mouthpieces, I guess. He just didn't think anything about it. He just socked me in the mouth, man. Thought about quitting right then.
Dang, it was like right out the rip, or?
It was like towards the end of the night.
See,
It might have been like
that
the last thing we did, but
Yeah.
that's what I don't want my kids to have to deal with that. Getting hit in the mouth and it shaking them. So every day I just hit them in the face. Just go ahead and just go ahead. And,
It's
good
what my
morning.
brothers did to me growing up. They called it toughening me up. It paid off in the end, but there's a lot of mental scars from that.
it's
Oh man,
discipline.
yeah. Rylan, what he goes over and hits, baby Luca, Dylan's kid. Every time I'm over there, he's like, boop, and then just walks away.
Dylan's
Yeah.
already got him started on beta alanine too, getting him used
Yeah.
to all.
No man.
Look, I can't tell this story every time, but
I know
you'll have
every
to go back
time,
and listen, Jordan.
but it was.
So, what do
I
you
just had to
think?
bring it up. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, what do you think like drives you to want to do fighting so much? Because a lot of things, like getting hit in the face like that, even I'm sure you've had your share of like head trauma in the fighting space and like headaches or stuff
Yeah.
like that. So, what really, I guess, is the thing that defines people that want to fight compared to people who like are just like, oh, I'm gonna get up in there and spar a little bit, but that ain't gonna go further than that.
Well, honestly, I can only speak for myself because ever since I started, I knew I wanted to fight. And ever since my first fight, like, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. That's what I wanted to do. And for me, the driving factor, honestly, I just want to better myself. Like, I want to be able to say at the end of the next month or the end of the next fight, the end of the next training camp, the end of the next class that I'm always going to be a better version of myself than what I was before. And even mentally, like that's a big driving factor for me is that I'm not the puny kid I used to be growing up who was antisocial, who was just afraid to be in public, to talk to people in public, who's shy and introvert, things like that. And just the confidence that it's even given me to have that training, to know the ability I have within me, the things I'm capable of doing, that it just makes me better each day. And that's a big driving factor is just self improvement mentally,
So it kind of like
emotionally.
builds your confidence then, like
Oh, dude,
fighting and stuff.
absolutely. Like, I used to have like real bad like anxiety in public. Like anytime I was in a group of people, I wasn't comfortable. I was always just like keeping to myself, always looking over my shoulder, like almost paranoid anytime I was in public. But now, like, man, I'm the confidence, honestly. That's what I tell people all the time. You don't have to fight in a cage or in a ring to get that confidence. Showing up to a class, putting yourself outside your comfort zone, going against big guys, little guys, faster guys, and having them like hit you and learning how to deal with that mentally and emotionally and physically to then learn exactly what your body is capable of doing and what your mind is capable of overcoming, like that alone is worth every day, like showing up, getting beat up. Like it's rough at first. Like there were several times I wanted to just give up in the very beginning, but it's those little achievements you get along the way. Like, hey, I finally lasted a whole round without getting hit real hard this time, or hey, I lasted a whole round in jujitsu this time without getting an arm barred or getting choked out or something like that. And it's those little achievements where you then start to like build up. And you're like, hey, like I'm actually
Yeah.
doing this. I'm actually catching on. Like, and then you start landing good punches. Then you start getting good head movement. Then your footwork starts catching on. And then next thing you know, you're just as good as any other person who's been training as long as you have been.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one thing that I hadn't done any fighting. I've done like, like kickboxing training and
Mm-hmm.
stuff just to see what it's like. A lot of the stuff you're saying, I kind of went through that space. I was going through like a hard time, but it's also I learned that going through hard stuff kind of built confidence within me that makes you just
Yeah.
want to do even more harder stuff. But everything
Yeah,
changes when you get hit
absolutely.
in the mouth. You're like, holy crap, this is real.
Well, I mean,
So how
that's
many?
even now. Like
Yeah,
what you're saying about getting hit in the mouth, like, everything changes. Like there's always the same. Like
yeah,
everybody has a plan until you get hit in the mouth. And I mean, it's still to that point. I can be feeling the most confident as I am that day in class. As soon as we start sparring, my punches just aren't adding together. My combos aren't landing. I get hit in the mouth. I'm getting tossed side to side. And it's one of those, like, you just have to make or break with your mental for that day. You can either give up and just pity party yourself and allow your brain to just destroy your own mental, or you can choose to just push through, look at the goods that you did get out of training that day, and move on.
yeah. That makes sense, man. So you did like MMA first, and now you're transitioning to
Yes.
boxing, or
Yeah. So a couple reasons for that. One reason I did the MMA first was because grappling was the biggest portion of my game whenever I first started. Like I said, the first day I showed up, got popped in the nose, and just thought, man, maybe this punching stuff isn't for me. A
mm,
couple weeks later, was doing some sparring again, not against the same big guy, against somebody a little closer to my size. And the group of people I was training with at the time, because I'm with a whole different group of people now, um, they weren't. It was a rough group. It was like only the strong survived in that kind of environment. So there was a lot of people who came in, a lot of people who left, and only a few stayed. And it was one of those, like, I had to push through it. But I'll be honest, like, my first year of training, I would learn the striking drills, I would learn all the movements, but I wouldn't spar at the end of class. I didn't want to get hit. I was afraid of getting hit. I wasn't comfortable hitting people, getting hit. And it took me a whole year before I actually regained the confidence to want to spar somebody. And a lot of that was just from PTSD from that first two times I ever sparred somebody, of just getting hurt from people who were much better than me, who had no regards to me actually learning. They were just, I don't
Punch,
know, I don't
punch,
want to
punch,
call it
punch.
gym bully, but
No.
yeah, like they were just
yeah,
taking advantage of someone who didn't know as much. Um, and so it caused PTSD, and that's a big thing for me now, is especially as a coach and running my own gym. I earlier this year, well, no, earlier last year, whenever I first took on the position of leading the gym and becoming the head coach, I started diving a lot into sports psychology, and that is a huge passion of mine now. Is the psychology of fighting. And one thing I learned was you don't want to cause PTSD in a gym environment, because not everybody is going to be like a Mike Tyson who can survive in that kind of environment. Who You have your very few, very rare people who are just naturally born with the mental fortitude to be able to just walk in, get beat up, and push through. But not everybody has that. Not everybody can just walk in, take a beating, and then show back up the next day. And so you don't want to create PTSD to avoid problems like I had, where it took me a year before I ever regained the confidence to want to punch somebody, to get punched. Um, so, continuing where we were with the transition. So, that first year, I put all of my training into jujitsu. I progressed really fast. I have a brain that really works well for fighting. The way my ability to think, my ability to naturally visualize um, on a 3D spectrum, for drilling in my head, which I didn't learn until later. That's a huge tool that is taught to professionals in the sports psychology world, but it's just something that comes natural for me. So whenever I hit that year mark, I and I got back sparring. Something just clicked, man. Like it was like that confidence just hit all of a sudden. And I was in there, I was training just as hard as all the other guys. I was getting in there sparring just as hard as the other guys. I would still have those moments where I would start to feel a little overwhelmed, or maybe I would get hit a little too hard and like my body would naturally want to react. I'd start tearing up a little, start huffing a little bit, but like I
Dang.
just pushed through and had to train my body not to panic like that. Had to train my mind not to revert to that sort of reaction in that physical and mental stress. And we had a couple guys who were training for a fight. And we would do something called a shark tank, which is where the fighter would stay in, and each round a fresh training partner would come in,
Oh,
and they
wow.
would have to fight somebody completely fresh
That's what I
while
did.
they work their cardio the entire time. The fighter stays in. That way, one, you're pushing your cardio. Two, you're seeing a bunch of different styles, a bunch of different speed, power, ranges, but also the whole mental part of you have to adapt each round. And one of my buddies, he was getting ready for it wasn't his debut, it was his second fight. He was walking at like 225 at the time. And so I got in there, I was working on being a taller, longer guy. My jab is like my go-to back then. And that was the only thing I could do well, was just jab. So I'm sitting there, he's tired, I'm popping him with a jab, just kind of keep it long. And next thing I know, I hear our coach call for a move where you slip under the jab and bounce over the top with a big right hook.
Dang.
And I throw out my jab, and next thing I know, like everything's black. My head's coming up kind of sideways, and I open my eyes, and it's like everything's red and like fading back in. And like as
Whoa.
my head's like tilting up, like I start to realize like what had happened. Like I just got hit really hard.
So it was like a quick blackout, or like it was
Yes, like
instant.
oh yeah, it was bam. Like I
Dang.
even know what happened until I came back to. I was still up on
Yeah,
my
so
feet. I was
you were
just
straight knocked
stunned.
out when that happened.
Yeah, I was out on my feet.
Okay.
The first time it's ever happened, I've only had it happen twice. So yeah, I'm coming up. Everything's red, fading back in. I look up. I see him. He's over there, just real gassed. And so it was like this flips. This switch just flipped in me that I've never had before, and like I got super aggressive after that. Like I went over there and was like actually trying to hurt him for what he did to me, which I had never done that in any of my training before. And after that class, I go back home, and my coach sends a message to our group chat saying, "Hey, they have this guy. He's only been training for about 3 months. He's a debut. His opponent backed out, so they need somebody to fill in. They said it needs to be somebody who has no experience with fighting, because this guy, very green. Green is what we call someone who very new, very inexperienced, not a lot of skills." So I was feeling good. I'm like, I just took a huge hit, the biggest punch I've ever felt, and reacted great to it. So I sent the message like, I'll take it. Now at the time I was walk around weight at 160, and this guy was supposed to fight at 165. And fighters usually cut about anywhere from 10 to 15 pounds when they're trying to get into a weight class. So I took it. We asked if they can get him down to 160. They said sure. So I walk in, all of my clothes on. I've got sweatpants on, hoodie on, full outfit, step on the scale, and I'm 158. This guy weighs in still at 165. I guess there was miscommunication somewhere. So this guy was a lot bigger than me. He was shorter, but just very stocky, very stout. And so that first fight, man, like that was probably the best feeling I've ever had, especially the best mental towards a fight, was that first fight. Because my whole team was telling me, like, hey, you've got this. This guy, he doesn't have a lot of experience. You're going to get in there. You're just going to be able to do your thing. I remember my coach telling me, like, the first round is going to be the hardest. He's just going to want to hurt you in the first round. If you can stick it through the first round, he'll gas by the second, and then you'll be able to take him in the second round. So I come out, first round. I'm looking at him. My coach says I need to punch him first because he's never been punched like that. So I come out. I just give him a stiff jab right to his nose. The guy's eyes roll back. Like, his eyes are super wide. Like, I can't believe this kid just hit me. I throw a kick right down the middle towards his body, push him back a little bit, and then the swarm starts. Man just starts running to me, throwing fists, and it was like mentally I blacked out. Like, I don't remember exactly how things went from there, except that we ended up against the cage. Like, as he's running into me, we just end up against the cage. He grabs me, throws me on the ground. And so I'm sitting on the ground, which the ground is where I wanted to be because that's where I was comfortable at the time, the most comfortable. So I'm holding him on me. My coach told me that if we get to the ground, just hold on to him, make him squirm a little, just stay calm, try and make it hard for him to breathe. So I'm holding him on to me. I'm kneeing him in his ribs from the bottom, which I was so inexperienced in. Just give him some knees, and he eventually just settles. So I get my guard. Guard is very important in the jiu-jitsu world. And I'm just holding on to him. He tries doing a bully move where he shoved the forearm into the throat. And so I pass the elbow pass, and I end up getting sort of like what you would call an arm triangle. But I wasn't trying to finish because I heard my coach yell 30 seconds left. And I wasn't about to try and burn out my arms to finish a unlikely choke. So I'm just holding. Well, this guy just sits up with me and then slams me into the mat. And I remember thinking, like, oh, this isn't going to hurt. Bro, I'll tell you, it was a weird flash. Like, it hit right on the back of my head into the mat. And it was just like a flashbang type effect. And, hearing a little bit of ringing. But after that, he was so gassed. I remember standing up. This dude is just barely able to walk back to his corner. I go back. I sit down. I remember my coach telling me, he's like, hey, he probably won that round just because he was on top. This was during the John Jones and Reyes controversial fight. So they were experimenting with giving live judging between the rounds. And I actually won the first round, according to the judges. So then we get back up. Second round, I come back out. I throw a kick right down the center, place it on his chin. He starts to swarm again. We end up against the cage. This time, I stayed aware. So once we got to the cage, I grabbed him and I'm giving him knees right to his stomach. And then he ends up turning around. When we get there, take the guy down, and then once we get to the ground, I just start dropping some hammer fist for mount. He turns over. I get to the back, set up an armbar from the back. That was the first fight. Best feeling ever, man. Like, I was so excited that I tried doing a standing front flip, which I don't do standing front flips. Like, that's nothing I've ever even attempted to try. It was just such, adrenaline. It was, man. Like, It was such a feeling of just accomplishment that, like, I literally just tried doing a standing front flip, landed flat on my butt, and, like, embarrassed myself in front of everybody. But
I remember watching the video after, because I went back to watch it and listening to the announcers. Like, I believe there was a woman announcer. She was like, yeah, I'm a big fan of him. And then you do the front flips. Like, I'm not a big fan of that. But
it was so embarrassing. But honestly, the greatest feeling ever. I've had 3 fights since then. I won my second fight, and then I lost my other 2. The other 2, honestly, was just a lot of mental stuff. My second fight was not pretty at all. I came out, was hesitating a lot. The guy was an excellent striker. So for a whole round and a half, the guy was just having his way with me on our feet. And since again, my whole goal was to be a grappler. I was having a hard time getting past this guy's punches to ever want to commit to trying to take him to the ground. And so I'm getting beat up for a whole round and a half. He was committing so hard on every single strike. I could see it coming. So I was defending well. I wasn't injured. I wasn't getting hurt by this guy. It's just, it was pretty good on his end, bad on my end. Second round, he goes to load up a high kick. And so I duck under it. And he ended up slipping because he overcommitted the kick. And once he slipped, he was on the ground. I saw my opportunity. So I just jumped on this guy. Was able to get to his back, rear naked choke, secured it. Fourth fight, it was my first time dropping down to 135. First
Well, that's a
round.
huge cut.
Yeah.
You said you were
Yeah,
at-
because I usually walk
Like-
around off season at about 160. And so
Dang.
what I'll do is I'll get on a very clean diet and I'll get myself down to about 145. And then I'll do a water load for the week of, drop another couple pounds, and then I'll water cut from there.
Dylan needs to take some pointers here. He's trying to cut.
Yeah. We
No, I'm
can
not.
get on that later because I'll break down
Yeah, I'd love
exactly
to
how
hear
I
more
do
about
that. Yeah. So then third fight, he was on his sixth or seventh fight. It was my third fight. A big skill difference, which shows in the video. I was very anxious. I was very over aggressive, not calmly setting things up, and just wasn't thinking smart. I ended up getting on the ground in the first round, had a very nice submission setup, but I was working against myself. I had a triangle, but my hand was stuck in because when you're wearing gloves, it's much harder to grapple because your wrists are stiff. You've got the big boat anchor of gloves on the end of your hands, and my hand was stuck in my triangle. And triangles are constriction moves, so you're supposed to like push everything in, like suck it in. Well, instead of pushing my fist in to the choke, I was pulling on my leg while trying to squeeze. So I ended up working against myself, killed my legs. So second round I come out, my legs are just jelly, like they were dead. A lot of it from the weight cut. Being my first time, wasn't expecting that, and then just killed him in the first. I ended up on the ground again. We were back and forth, top position. He was a very good jits guy. I was a very good jits guy. Flipping, flopping, top control, back and forth. And I end up on the bottom in side control, and this guy's just dropping like little pepper shots, right? Like not doing big damage, but like he's just constantly touching me with some elbows, some little hammer fist, and I'm blocking them. I'm not taking damage. And one of the things I was told in my camp was this guy's just going to want to get on top of you, just hold you. He's going to touch you. He's not going to hurt you. Then he'll gas out, and you can take your time, and you'll have the fight. So I remember sitting on the ground. I'm not getting hurt by these shots. I'm blocking them. But then I hear the ref say, "Fighter, I need to see you move." I'm like, dang, like he's going to try and stop it, but I'm not hurt. Like nothing's wrong. So I'm like squirming around, just move my hips a little bit just to show the ref like I'm still in the fight, whatnot. Then I hear the ref again, "Fighter, I need you to move." I'm like, dang, okay, like I get it. So then I start shrimping my hips out to start to set up a sweep. And as soon as I move my hips out, the ref stops the fight. And I remember sitting up just so confused, like sitting there thinking to myself, like, I don't get it. I'm not hurt. Like, what's the deal? And then my coach walks in. He's upset at the ref because it was an early stoppage. I wasn't damaged. And the ref looks at him and says, "Man, I just didn't want to see him get hurt," which
Dang.
is kind of the exact opposite of an MMA fight. Like I trained 2.5 months going in there knowing I'm going to get hurt.
You're gonna
while
get
trying,
hurt.
trying to hurt him more.
Yeah.
And you're going to stop it because you didn't want to see me get hurt. Not that I was hurt. And I don't know, man, but
That's
it was
kinda the
still my
point of the
fault.
fight.
I was too it's part of the fight. It's part of the fight world. It happens all the time. I don't hold it against anybody. I was complacent on the ground, much more complacent than I should have been, and it was just a learning experience. My last fight was probably my favorite fight. Went against a very good fighter, well-rounded fighter. His name's Marquis Jones. He trains with law
Sounds
school
like a
up in
fighter.
Memphis. Yeah,
Got a
Marquis
fighter name.
Jones. Uh,
Yeah.
Jones.
Just need the bread of the hair, man.
yeah. So in that fight, I don't remember the first round. So that last fight, man, like I was
Sheesh.
honestly just not in the mental space. Mental was always something I really struggled with my training, with fighting. I could do great in the gym, but the moment I stepped in the ring, it was like I was a whole different person. I couldn't be myself in the cage when I was fighting someone. So we come out and I just freeze. And like I'm just
Oh
standing
man.
there looking at this guy. And so he throws two or three of just like real strong right hands. And the first one hits, and I just remember like, okay, like that wasn't that bad. Second one hits, and I'm like, oh man, like what's going on? And then lights out. So that was the second time I've been knocked out my feet. I was still in it though. Um, I remember during the process of like going in and out that my brain was telling me like, oh, just lay down, it'll be over quick, like you'll be okay. And I remember laughing at my own internal dialogue, laughing at myself, saying, no, it's going to take way more than that to put me out. And what's funny is right before that fight, um, that's when I started trying to learn about sports psychology, but I didn't really know a whole lot about it. And I was watching a video about Israel Adesanya talking about your internal voice is always going to want you to take the easy way out. And it is true because your brain's job is to protect the body, and your body wants to protect your brain. So your body is always going to tell you to give up, is always going to tell your brain to stop. And then your brain is always going to try and tell your body to stop because it doesn't want to be uncomfortable. It doesn't want to be put in those situations where it thinks something's wrong. So Israel Adesanya was talking about in one of his fights, I think it was against Robert Whitaker. He was getting into the fifth round, and he remembers he had that voice pop up in his head. And it was like, oh, you've done enough. You fought 4 rounds. You won those rounds. You can just take it easy this round. And his brain was trying to convince him to kind of give up, not give up the fight, but just give up trying and take the easy way out. And he there's a video of him when he stands up for that fifth round and he walks out. You can see him mouthing to himself, I'm prepared to die, because he
Yeah, I've
was
seen that.
consciously
Yeah.
making the choice to take the harder route and not listen to that internal voice that wants to take the easy way out. So it hit me like in that moment, man, like I'm literally just in and out of consciousness in this first round. Uh, and I hear that voice, oh, just lay down. It'll be easy. It'll be quick. And I tell myself, like, no, it's going to take way more than that to put me out. I remember coming to towards the end of the first round. Like, it might have been like a 10-second click or something. Like, that brought me back in. And we're both up against the cage. And I'm like, okay, this is where we're at now.
How I get
And
here?
yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know how I got here, but I'm here now. And round's over, I go back to my chair, I sit down, and I just remember hearing, man, it was just like ringing and roaring all around. Like I couldn't hear anything. When I looked up, I was seeing purple and green everywhere. There's just spots like stuck in my eyes. Real bad concussion, man. Like the
Damn.
worst I've ever had. And I couldn't hear my coaches. I could only hear myself thinking. And my thought was, I got to do it. Like, I'm here. I can't give up. So I come out in the second round, and for the first time in my MMA career, in my fighting career, I went out and actually punched somebody with the sole intent of just hurting them as bad as I could. Which is kind of sad to think 4 fights in, and I finally find like that switch to flip where I actually want to hurt somebody.
You gonna die today.
Yeah, so I go out and I throw a 1-2 and I reach all the way in with that 2 and just push all the way through. And I remember whenever I hit him, it landed so hard. Like his head just like stuns back. His eyes are just like stuck looking up. And it was kind of like that same feeling in my first fight. Like they were surprised I hit them like that. Um, it was a very, it was a very not a good fight technique wise, because man, I was not in the mental space. After I got hit, I was not in the head space. Probably one of the sloppiest fights I've had. Um, and it went all the way to decision. He ended up winning by decision. I was the only guy who, at that time, made it out of the first round with that guy. Um, and I went all the way to decision. I was proud of myself for that. I went back and watched the footage, and while I was unconscious in the first round, no memory recollection of it, I was actually landing lots of good combos that I was setting up. I was still fighting very smart, even though I wasn't thinking. It was just that muscle memory. My body was just going on its own. Um, so during the process of all that, my third fight, I ended up messing my back up. I um,
Dang.
I had a couple discs that had slipped in my lower back. I had a pinched nerve in the middle of my back, and then I had a couple of my discs slip in my neck. And
Spinal.
yeah, like I really didn't know what was going on. The first time I ever had a nerve pinch in my back, it was before I even started the MMA. I was just lifting something very light at work, and it felt like I got shot through and through. Couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Someone just said, "Ah, you pinched a nerve. It'll be all right in a couple of days." Didn't think anything about it. 3 fights later, I'm at my house. I can't move, man. Like I'm stuck,
Dang.
hands on my knees. I can't walk. I can't do anything. So I go see a chiropractor, and that's when I started to realize, like, man, like I've been real rough on my body without, proper care, without proper treatment. And so I had to start like some recovery. And that last fight was at 145 instead of 135 because I didn't quite want to make a weight cut with my back still being iffy the way it was, which honestly I didn't have any business taking that last fight just because my back still wasn't all the way healed. So after that fight, that was about a year and a half ago, I decided to take a break. I decided, one, heal my back, and two, heal my mental. Because,
Yeah.
like I said, my mental just wasn't there, man. Like, what's the point in showing up, having great training camps, if the moment I step in that ring, I can't even be the same fighter? Like, I can't even use the abilities I've been working on. So for a year and a half, I've dedicated everything to uh, recovering my back and training myself mentally to just be a better fighter, which is paying off like tremendously. Um, One big thing that has helped me is cross training. So I go to other gyms and I will work with other people, because when you're in the same environment for a long period of time, you don't know it, but subconsciously you're building patterns, right? You have the same teammates who show up, they use the same combos, they punch at the same speed, they use the same head movement, same footwork, and your brain just picks up
Yeah.
patterns. And you start to just get lazy
Yeah.
mentally
Like
because
comfortable
you're
with
like,
it.
yeah, you get too comfortable because you're not having to work yourself under stress.
Yeah.
And when you cross train, you go somewhere where you don't know how hard that person punches, you don't know how fast their punches are, you don't know what combos they use, you don't know their game. And so your brain has to start reacting and responding under stress. And it's not that it is like fighting in the cage or like fighting in a ring, but it's very similar in the way that your brain has to adapt on the spot and react to the stress that's coming in. And that's been a big tool for helping. The other one is I do a lot of mental training. Um, I ask my athletes all the time, and I'm sure you guys have heard it. Anytime you're doing a sport, there's always the question, well, how much of the sport do you accredit to this percentage being physical, this percentage being mental? And
Yeah.
you'll see it all the time. Like most people say, about 70% of it's mental. And like I've asked guys, I get different answers. Some say, it's about 50-50, 60, 70, 80. And I ask every one of them, and this is something I had to ask myself one time. If you believe that more of the sport is mental than it is physical, then why do you always spend time training the physical, but you never train the mental?
Yeah.
It's easy to say that and it's easy to realize that, but where do you go from there? How do you train the mental? And that's something I've spent a whole year and a half now learning, having to reprogram the way I think, having to reprogram the way I train, my goals, my ideas, everything had to change mentally for me to get to a better place. And that's where I finally feel I'm in that better place. I've my back's doing so much better, not having any issues. It's been about 8 months since the last time I've had a flare up of any kind. I was having some issues in my side joint, lastly, uh, and I'm I'm at a, I would say almost a peak mentally and physically, where in my game, much better than where I was previously, and not to like talk down on myself or anything, but like, man, used to, I thought I was great and I was good for, my time in the sport. But thinking about where I'm at now, like it's just a whole nother level, man.
I think that's the thing that
Yeah.
holds a lot of people back is the mental.
Oh,
It's
100%.
like
Namely, Peyton.
I can't even like I was because Dylan does these is starting these monthly challenges, right?
Hmm.
For us three.
Yeah.
And one of the things for this month, well, the thing for this month is cold baths. And I'm like, I want to
Man.
try one, but like I'll cut the water full on cold in the shower, put my head in, and I just shrivel up and cut it back on hot.
Yeah, so
Like I can't do that.
I did some ice bath in the last fight camp, and I almost passed out the first time I hopped in an ice bath because
Wow,
I had to
that's
like
scary.
force myself to breathe, man.
Bro.
It was
Like
crazy.
that's
the
why I
worst
don't do
part.
it because like one of the Spartan races I ran, I think it was the Dallas one. There was this creek we had to cross. I mean, it was cold because this was like end of October. It was like maybe that day probably like low 50s or something, but the water was like I step in and it's only like 5 feet or 5.5 feet deep. So you can swim across. It's only like 15 feet across, 12 feet, something like that. I get in it to go across, and like it takes the breath out of you. Like, and
Oh yeah.
I thought like, dude, I'm about to drown, and it's only like I only got like 10 feet to go. Like
Don't
I'm
feel
over here
bad.
like
I've only done it like 4 or
trying to get
5
across.
times since the first week.
Yeah, the
So y'all can
cold
catch up. Y'all can catch
cold
up. I've
baths
been
is something
slacking
I
this
want to
week.
do, but
Yeah.
yeah, because like cold bath, that's all it is just mental. Just like just get in and freeze.
It's not that bad once you get in there.
Yeah, because then
Yeah,
it
it's just like
just
the
warms
mental of
up.
it, you know?
Yeah.
Your
It
body
warms up.
heat warms
You're
up.
already there now. I mean, the hardest part is just getting in there. Put your feet
Yeah, it's
in.
fine as long as you sit still, but the moment you start moving and that fresh cold water
Yeah,
starts
like
touching
Yeah.
your
if you
skin
just sit
again.
still, like you get used to it, so it's not even cold anymore.
Oh, it's cold.
I mean, it's cold, but it's not cold.
Not as cold. It's bad. How do you know?
I mean, I've gotten in cold water before.
So I put my toe in there. I know what it feels like.
I heard Andrew Huberman, he said just like have like 3 or 4 walls you overcome each time. Sometimes it may be your wall may be like staying in there for 10 minutes, or whatever, but the first wall usually for me is just cutting the water on. You're overcoming that mental wall. And
Mhm.
then okay, that's one, just 2 or 3. Okay, get in. Put your legs in. And if you're doing it in a bathtub at the house, it's kind of hard to do your whole body at once.
Yeah,
So I do
because
like my
then
lower
your
body.
knees are sticking out or your
I
whole
do like my
torso.
lower body, and that's like a wall. And then like if I'm not feeling super like I do it as soon as I wake up. So like my mental is just not there. So it's like that's when I'm at my weakest mentally. So that's when I try to do it. and it kind of sets me on a trajectory for the rest of the day. But if I'm not feeling it that day, I'm like, all right, 3 minutes. And then most of the time when I'm in there 3 minutes, I'm like, okay, well, I can do more. I could go all the way in now or something like that. Just build on that. First thing to do, you just got to cut the water on.
But yeah, like there's like a lot of things you can do to like really challenge yourself mentally. Like one, like just
Show up to the
straight
gym.
hard workouts. Things that make you
Even
uncomfortable,
any
like
workout.
running in the rain or something. Like
Yeah.
running in cold
Goggins.
weather, shirtless. Something like that. Just
But
things
naked.
that make you uncomfortable.
And that goes a lot
Getting
back to what
punched
I
in the
was.
face.
Yeah,
Like.
yeah. That goes a lot back to what I was talking about. Like if you only stay comfortable, your body's not going to learn how to react when you're uncomfortable, when you're under stress, when you get that anxiety.
Right.
And see, before, like with all my fights, I never went cross trained. I tried it one time. The gym I went to, they didn't have any care for the safety of those who were cross training, and it was very
Dang.
obvious that they were just trying to bully the people who were coming in, and it put a bad taste in my mouth. So I stopped cross training because I thought, man, if this is what it's like to cross train, I'll just stay in the gym where I don't have to worry about people trying to just hurt me when I'm trying to learn and get better. Uh, but I had to learn how to get uncomfortable again, because when you're in that cage, it doesn't matter how good you feel before the fight, it doesn't matter how good you feel in your fight camp, it doesn't matter how great all of your experience was. As soon as you step in there, they shut that cage door behind you, lock it. You look up, you're staring the guy in the eyes who is about to come at you and try and hurt you. There is no comfort there. There is no relief. It's only stress. It's only anxiety. Just straight uncomfort. And if you cannot program your brain to respond to that in an educated and free way, then you'll have the experiences I have where you just lock up, you hesitate, you second guess everything, and then you end up like me and get beat up a lot because you're holding yourself back. So yeah, it's always good to find any way you can to train uncomfortably. Also set goals. Dylan was talking about that, about set those goals each time. So what I do
That's
is I
right.
tell my guys, every time you spar with somebody in the gym, set a goal for that round. Whether if that's you want to land leg kicks, you're trying to land body shots, maybe you're trying to work on your head movement.
Knock them out.
For
Just
that
wanna...
round, well, no, I'm not about hurting our training partners, but for that round, dedicate your whole sparring session to one goal. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It's not like, oh, I want to go this whole round without getting hit, because you're going to get hit. But it could be little things like, I want to hit double jabs this round. Things that are obtainable, small steps. And what you notice is as you start hitting those goals, your mental starts growing with it, because you're setting manageable goals with manageable expectations that are easy to hit, and you'll see your performance just start to skyrocket. And I had to start with that. And there's lots of other mental tools I've learned, lots of mental exercises I've learned, ones that help with um, preparing with the stress for fighting, how to get rid of the pre-fight jitters. Um, I mean, all across the board, there's so many tools mentally. And what's crazy is only up until about 2014, the entire sports psychology world was just unheard of. I didn't hear about it until one of my favorite UFC fighters, Sandhagen. He went on a 2-fight loss streak, and he thought about quitting and giving up. So he went and started seeing a sports psychiatrist, and it just it put a new flame in him. And whenever I heard him talking about this, like it really made me wonder, like, man, like, is this something I do need to look into? And then after my last fight, that's when I was like, yeah, like I need to take my mental serious. And now I wish that was something I would have learned way before because of how much it's helped me as an athlete. And that's not even just for fighting, that's any sport. Even long distance runners have to train mentally. You have to train your brain to run those long distance and not to listen to your body when your body wants to give up, how to deal with the pressure, how to deal with changes. And I mean, every sport, every aspect, even day-to-day life, man, that's something that people really should take into account is training yourself mentally to deal with stress, to deal with getting out of your comfort zones. Because Andy Stanley actually said it. He said, "You'll never be the best you inside of your comfort zone."
Yeah.
And so every chance I get, man, like where if that's choosing the best guys in my gym to spar with, even whenever I get tired, just anything to make me uncomfortable and to force me to respond and to force me to do something, I'm going to choose that now. As for before, not that I was against it, but like I would shy away from making myself uncomfortable. Um,
See,
and
that's why I keep rocks like in my socks when I'm all day. Keep me uncomfortable.
Are you
I didn't
serious?
Throw
you
a
do
screw in there every once in a
that.
while. You gotta stay
I think,
uncomfortable, man. Gotta be great.
yeah, I think like both like the best thing for you both physically and mentally is just embrace being uncomfortable.
Yep.
Embrace the suck.
Yeah.
Embrace the
Go one
That's
suck.
more.
what I
Go
tell my
one more,
class
you
all the
know.
time.
Hard work pays off. Oh,
Because I teach a kids class 3 days a week. And I tell them all the time, like, guys, you gotta embrace the suck. It's gonna suck, but you can't get over that. Like, you just gotta get through it.
Do you
that's what
think it
somebody
comes down
says.
to the person? Like whenever you're doing that, like as an instructor, I'm sure and we have a lot of that, like within our friend group of just like we know they can do it, and we kind of push them as much as we can to do it. But it's like sometimes that just
They share a
mental,
name.
getting them over that mental of getting over that
Yes.
mental hoop
So,
is just so hard. How do you get
Just
that to
doing it.
transition in your classes?
all right. So, one of the biggest things I had to learn during sports psychology, especially as a coach, was the fact that everybody learns differently. Everybody's mental responds differently. So, like, I have some kids, they're just mentally tough. I have one kid since his first day, he was like Mike Tyson. He just all or nothing. Like, if he came forward, he was swinging for the fences.
Dang.
And
Mike
yeah,
Tyson.
and then I have other kids who, bro, you punch their glove and they want to cry. And so you have to learn like the different ways to teach people, even in my adult class. And this is something I take pride in because being a coach wasn't really a choice of mine per se. It was very situational. Not getting into any details about what all went on, but had a coach who left, and it was either I take up classes or we weren't going to have a gym anymore. So I
Dang.
decided to step up, took over the gym, big responsibility. I didn't know exactly what I was getting into. Uh, I mean, for about 5 months, 5 to 6 months, like it was a very dark place in my life, just because, like I said, it wasn't a choice I wanted to make. It was just
Yeah, a lot of
sink or
responsibility to
swim.
step
Yeah.
up right away.
Um, and so since then, like I've just been trying to learn how to better myself as a coach, better my team, and during that time, I had some young guys come in from Northwest because we're in Santobia. It's a college campus town, and they are not at all gifted athletically. They are not at all coordinated, and in the most just respectful but honest way, in a real life scenario, they they would have zero chance at defending themselves in a self defense situation of any kind. And now these guys, like it was two of them. These guys are some of the best guys in the gym right now, as far as being able to just push each other, being able to to push you when you're sparring, to like skill wise. Like these guys are great. And that's something I take pride in, because the environment that was in the gym before was, it was sink or swim. The strong would survive. You showed up, you did what we did. If you weren't good at it, then you would either catch on or you would leave. But the way I teach the classes now, I have the ability to teach people who aren't even gifted physically, who definitely don't have the mental for it, but I'm able to get them to a place where they can actually stand in there and fight, like spar with some of the greatest fighters in the area, and look just as good as anybody else when they do it. And it's a lot of mental training. Um, One thing is to figure out what is causing the mental hindrance. And that was something I had to question with myself. Was I afraid of losing? No, I wasn't afraid of losing. Was I afraid of getting hurt? No, I wasn't afraid of getting hurt. So, what was causing me to freeze when I would get out there? And what I found out was that two things that were a big factor to my mental when I stepped in the cage: perfectionist and people pleaser. I didn't want to make mistakes and make myself look bad because, one, I didn't want to make mistakes, period, just being a perfectionist. I didn't want to look sloppy. I wanted to look nice. I wanted to have good technique. And then, two, part of being a people pleaser, I didn't want to fail the people who were there to watch me. I didn't want to fail my team. And so, what would happen is I would go out there and I would hesitate every time I wanted to react or respond or engage. I would stop myself mentally because I didn't want to mess up. And so I had to learn how to, one, get completely away from those ideas. The perfectionist, I had to realize it's a fight. It's not going to look pretty. There is no pretty fights. Even when you go and watch like the highest level of boxers, like sure, they have techniques in the fight that look pretty, but the fight itself is never pretty. Canelo, one of the best boxers, probably the best boxer right now,
Yeah, I love Canelo.
and he
He's awesome.
still gets hit in his fights. He has amazing head movement. One of the
Yeah, his
most
last fight,
untouchable
man,
boxers.
it was pretty tough.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Plant is, he's going places, man.
Jake Paul's the best
Yeah.
boxer.
Okay. Can we mute Peyton right now?
Just kick him out.
So yeah, like even fighters like Canelo, they go in there and they make mistakes. Mistakes are gonna happen, but how you react and respond to those mistakes is what makes you the better fighter. So what I had to realize was when I go out there and I'm fighting, I'm gonna get touched, I'm gonna get punched. There's no way around that. It's a fight. I'm literally stuck in a 16-foot or smaller space with another human who has every intent to hit me just as much as I have an intent to hit them. I'm going to get touched. But I can't be so caught up in just trying to look nice or make myself want to look pretty. It's like the way I tell people, like, we're animals just the same as anybody else, like anything else in the world. You go look at in the jungle, the animal that has the most ferocity, the animal that has the most drive to want to win, the most aggression, those are the ones that walk out of the fight the winner. And in a primal sense of human beings, when you step in that cage, if you don't want it more, if you don't have that, what we call that dog in you,
You got that dog in him.
then more than likely you're not going to be the one getting their hand raised in the end. And so it's not about going in there looking pretty. It's going in there with the sole intent of causing the most damage in the shortest amount of time. And that's a goal that I've had to set even within myself. The people pleasing, I had to get away from that. I had to realize that people aren't going to be happy if I'm performing and I look nice. Because that was always the biggest thing. Like, man, I just want to look nice so people be proud. No,
Yeah.
people are happy when you're knocking somebody unconscious. Like, that's the whole reason we have UFC fights and
Yeah.
boxing and stuff like that. We want to
Have
see
you knocked
people
anybody
get hurt. Um, Not in a fight, but in training, I
Titans.
have in some
Okay.
hard sparring rounds. Um,
Oops.
it it was semi intentional. It wasn't like I was just trying to be a jerk, but at the same time, like we
Whoops.
were
Bang.
having, well, it was a fight inside the gym. We were doing 3 3-minute rounds, and we had to treat it just like it was a real fight. And I set up a beautiful combo. My last punch ended perfectly, put it right where I need to put it. The guy took one step back. I went to throw another punch, and he just collapsed. And that
Dang.
was that. Yeah. It was the
Sheesh.
first time I ever did that to somebody, and it was the wildest feeling.
Did you feel
Um,
awesome?
Ow.
Like you're like, bro, I'm the
Yeah.
man. Just
Like,
knock
dang, my
somebody
bad,
out.
man.
Well,
Oops.
it was a weird feeling
you.
because I mean it was a teammate. You don't want
Yeah.
to hurt your teammates, but at the
Yeah.
same time, like it's one of those like, dang, I really just did that.
Sometimes I'd like to do that to Peyton. Both of them.
But yeah, so there's
I
lots
got
of
that
factors.
dog in me, bro.
Yeah, I
So-
got that dog.
Ruff.
There's lots of factors that go into the
Chihuahua.
mental of people, and that's something each person has to kind of evaluate for themselves.
Yeah.
What drives you when you're in a fight or when you're performing as an athlete? What drives you? And a lot of times, the things that drive us is not the correct thing. Like for me, I was just wanting to look good. I wanted to have good technique. And in a fight, it's not always about who has the prettiest technique. It hardly ever is about who has the prettiest technique. It's who can cause the most damage and who can be the dog at the end. And I had to retrain like everything, like my goals in training, my goals mentally, like preparing for fights, stuff like that. Like this fight I have coming up, I had to change everything so that when I step in there, I'm not taking a gamble of, okay, am I actually going to be able to fight this time, or am I going to get in there and hesitate again? And like, I'm just going to be honest. Like, whenever I heard they were taking people to put on this card, I wanted to do it, but there was that part of me that was kind of anxious. Like, yeah, but like, what if I go in there and the same thing happens again? What if I go in there and I'm scared to throw a punch? What if I'm going there and I I don't fight like the way I train? But that's one of those like unless you do it, there's no way to know.
Yeah.
And that's the whole part of mental training is that you don't leave that up to chance. You don't leave it up to hoping that when you get in there, things are going to click and you're actually going to be able to perform like you need to. Mental training is so that when you go in there, you have a higher chance at performing the way you need to. Because I mean, even during fighting, your mental is like this. You'll have little moments where you're catching your rhythm, you're landing good shots, and your mental starts going up. And then you get hit in the face and it drops. You start
Like,
missing
oh,
your
crap.
punches
Here we
and
go.
it drops.
Life does that sometimes.
You get tired and it drops. You get hit in the stomach and it drops.
Get
And
kicked in the
yeah.
Groin
Some below the
area.
belt
and
shots.
they
yeah.
drop.
Yeah. And so mental training is one of those things that it gives you the highest percentage chance of having fewer drops in your mental during performance while maintaining a high standard of your mental ability.
Do you read any?
Um I'm not a big reader, but I read occasionally some material. What you got there?
I got a book here. It's called How Bad Do You Want It? It goes along. It's a psychology book. It was made by endurance runners. What
Mm,
this book is, it's basically just every chapter is a story of how an elite endurance athlete,
yeah.
they used a certain strategy to overcome something mentally. It's really, really good book. Super easy read because it's stories.
Hmm.
So even if you're not a reader, it's I find that it's really easy to read. But
Yeah, so
I feel like fighting and endurance. You know, if you're fighting, you're trying to endure in the ring.
absolutely.
But
It's survival, man.
it's definitely a one size. Like this is go for anybody. Like you don't have to be an endurance runner to read this. CrossFitters read it.
Yep.
It's a really good
Yeah,
book.
that's a lot of the stuff you were saying. I was like, because me and Dylan just did our first marathon. I don't know if you knew that, but it was
Yeah, I saw that.
It was a battle.
It did us.
Yeah, so yeah,
Shoot.
there's a lot of fighting in that. But a lot of the stuff you were saying, I was like, man, this
I got
is like
whooped.
key in running. Like you were talking about just going out there and doing something hard. That's how I got started in running. It was just like, man, this is. I was reading David Goggins' book, so that kind of got me turned on to running a little bit. But I was just like, I need to do something hard. Let me get out there and just start running. I don't know. Kind of just led one thing, but the confidence thing for sure. It's like when you get put in a situation where you get uncomfortable, it really shows you like who you are, what you need to work on.
Absolutely.
It also helps to know if you can defend yourself if something went down. You know, you at least have some chance. It boosts your confidence a little. Even like when I used to be scrawny and I put on some muscle, it boosted my confidence tenfold.
You in Walmart and there's a shooter, you just hide behind a little shoe rack and take them down when they walk by. Grab them by the legs.
Yeah, man, bulletproof shoe rack.
What the world?
No, I would not recommend anybody trying to
Get
punch
out.
someone with a
Don't
gun.
bring hands to a gunfight.
That's when you pull a Trevor and you just run for as fast and as far as you can.
Endure.
You run at a gun. Run
Don't
from a
at
knife,
the
run
gun.
at a gun. Yeah. Well, I mean,
That's
if
what
they
they
got a
say,
gun, you can
but
Just shoot the guy with the
I
gun.
wouldn't recommend it to anybody.
Yeah. No, I'm gone. They pull out a gun, I'm
Yeah.
gone.
Lateral movements. It increases your chances, but
What's
still
it?
I hope they don't pull a
shooting
wanted and they try to curve the bullet at you.
Yeah, I hate
You
for
gotta
them to curve
hide.
the bullet. You just do pull a matrix, dodge it. I mean, we're going through movies. What's it like the day after a fight, win or loss? How are you feeling? What's it like?
For me, it's still a sense of accomplishment, man. Win or loss. Now, after the win, it almost feels unreal, honestly. Like my first fight,
Floating.
I remember I won and I'm like, did I really do that? Like it doesn't even feel like I did that. And then I got that second win in a row. And again, I'm like, did that actually happen? And then like the loss happened. And then the next day I just remember thinking like, man, like it's not the same feeling, but like I still went in there and I still fought. Like I still carried myself very well. And even my last fight, it was the most unpretty, most violent fight I had. But afterwards, I was still like, man, like I did that. And I remember whenever I was getting my fourth fight booked, I remember thinking like, man, I'm an actual fighter now. Like I'm going to my fourth fight. Like I'm an actual MMA fighter. Because
I got a record.
whenever I first did it, it was first like, I just want to have one fight and that's it. And now here I am, 4 fights under my books, and I'm like, this is who I am now. This is what I do. Yeah, I am him.
Were you
I'm literally living out the dream I had as a kid, and I get to do that every day of the week. I get to go up there and train and do this stuff that I always dreamed of doing. Oh, it's dude, I'm so blessed, so blessed.
It's like go ahead, Peyton.
You do that first fight and you win it. You're like, oh man, I want to win another one. You do it, win another one. You're like, man, I want to keep this going. But you're like, dang, I can't go out on a loss though. So like,
I gotta go back.
I gotta go back again.
Well, like I said, like the loss wasn't a big deal for me because I still felt proud. Like I was still seeing where I was growing. I was still seeing like the accomplishments I made to get there. That was my first loss was my first time dropping to 135, and I felt good. I made weight good. I got in there and I fought a much experienced guy, and like I was handling myself very well, and that was the best my striking had looked up to that day. So those were things I was looking at the next day, like, man, like I did that. This is good, and that's what I keep building on.
That's kind of like after the marathon, like it could have been considered a loss because it was like an hour longer than I anticipated. But really after I was like, man, I felt so good because I was like, man, I did it. I finished it. And so it felt really good. What is like your fitness? Like, do you just do like sports specific? Like, are you just conditioning? Like, what is your conditioning? Like, do you do anything outside of just like your training that you consider as fight specific training?
Yes. So, yes and no. The reason I say that is because with my back being the way it is, I have to stay on weights to keep my back muscles tight, to keep everything in line, and
Strong.
to make sure it's well supported. Because if I go a couple weeks without lifting any weights, I'll immediately start feeling my back. It'll start aching. It'll start hurting. I'll be
Kind of goes
having
against
issues.
common what everybody's like. Oh, you're gonna hurt your back lifting those weights, and really that makes your back
Yeah.
stronger and it's healthier.
I did have to change my weight program, and that's what
Couldn't
honestly I
max out your
believe.
deadlift every day.
Well, yeah, that was the thing. I got away from any compression lifts, anything that would compress my back, and I would try and drive up with that. I got away from it. So I would do a lot of things like face pulls to,
Trevor.
to really reinforce the structure in my upper back,
Trevor's all
right
about
along my
that. He used to
spine.
be.
A lot of just like uh, rowing actions, a lot of things where I'm pulling and pinching in the back to hold that support. And then I got into the ATG program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's
So
his
whenever
name?
I
What's
got
his
into
name?
that, I started following him on Instagram, went and checked out his app, got some of the workouts there.
My knees
And
kind
then
of been bugging me the last week. I might need to get into some of that.
all right, so that's the thing about, man, when was that? It was about 8 months ago. I sprained my LCL in my left knee. Me and my jits coach, we were rolling. He's a black belt, been training 14 years. And I went to put him into a calf slicer, which is a move where
Sounds painful.
it is. It's more of an uncomfortable
Anything with pressure
move.
on a calf is
Yeah.
calves are sensitive.
So pretty much, I don't know how to explain it without using
Go
visualization.
to Peyton's house and do it.
So like,
He's closer to you.
imagine this is his thigh, this is his calf, and then I will put my leg across here and then pull his leg, which would then put his calf muscle pulling against my shin bone. Well, when I set this up, I went to I leaned forward to grab his foot. He went forward to roll out, and my knee went just like that.
Woo.
Not the way it was supposed to go. Yeah, and
Doesn't sound right.
instantly it was like my whole leg just went numb. I'm like, dang, like this just happened. Like the first leg injury I had in my entire career of mixed martial arts. And I remember just sitting there, like it was feeling numb, it was feeling stiff. I'm like, this is not good.
Dang.
So for about 3 months, like I couldn't hardly use my leg. I had to change my entire jiu-jitsu game. I used to play a lot of like bottom because I'm a smaller guy. I would play a lot of like bottom guard, a lot of submissions from the bottom, rubber guard, things like that. But when I can't bend my knee or use the flexibility of my knee, I had to change everything. I had to adapt. So I started working a lot more in wrestling so I could stay on top, hold top, and working a lot more of just like smashing from the top. And honestly, it improved my game a lot because as an MMA fighter, like I learned in my third fight, you don't want to be complacent on the ground. You should always fight to be in that top position. If anything, to protect yourself, but also if you're on the bottom, more than likely you're not going to be scoring with the judges. They're going to give it to the guy who's on top longer, who's in that control position. So even incidents can change how you train and what you train. But yeah, so the ATG fitness program, I go off track a lot, guys, and I will go on
Oh, you're good, bro. I'm learning a lot.
Hey, man.
forever.
We're learning a lot. It's good. I'm ready to run through a wall.
So
David Goggins, white David Goggins.
with the ATG guy, I also found Bulletproof Back. He's on Instagram, has a whole
Different
back
guy?
program. Yeah, it's
You
a
like
different
Jefferson
guy.
Curls?
I could probably find him on my Instagram and get you the name. But
Just put a
one
vest
thing I
on.
learned, Bulletproof Back Man, Aiden Lopez. This guy, it's
Yeehaw.
insane. You know those benches where it looks almost like a preacher curl bench, but it only comes up to about your waist, and you fold your back over and lift.
Yeah.
So like this is your waist, you drop your back, and then lift your back, a back extension.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he can do one of those at 275 pounds.
God.
Let's see if it'll.
Woo! Bro, that would snap my back in half.
So I started getting some workouts from him, and one thing that helped me a lot is seated good mornings. So I'll sit at the end of the
Peyton's
bench.
all about the good mornings.
Yeah,
I
but
wake
see,
up, say good morning, go back to sleep.
seated helped me a lot because what I found out was I have weak hamstrings. And since my hamstrings were weak, they were always tight. Since they're tight, they're pulling down on my hips. And since the hamstrings are a bigger group and a stronger group pulling down on the hips, then the smaller, weaker muscles in your lower back are constantly under strain because they're trying to pick your hips back up. This is something I learned from my sports masseuse, was that a lot of the pains I was having in my lower back and a lot of issues I was getting in my lower back was because I had weak hamstrings.
It's all connected.
Yeah, dude, it's all connected. So I had to change up my entire workout program.
Your hip bone's connected to your leg bone.
Not even just for fighting, but literally just for day-to-day comfort
Living.
of my own body. Yeah, exactly. Like I couldn't do anything for a long time, man, without having issues in my back. So I'm doing a lot of just supportive back lifts, a lot of things that work on the structure of strengthening my spine support, a lot of core workouts, building up not just the front core, but the back core, building up all those little muscles all over the little places in your back. And then like the ATG, working on building up my hamstrings, working on strengthening my knees because like I had the knee injury. And for a while there, it would get inflamed constantly, man. Like I'd have to come home, ice it after training. I would do things that wouldn't even put strain on my knee, but I'd still come home and it would ache. And ever since I started that ATG program, like I don't have any issues anymore. It's never inflamed. There's no clicking and popping, trying to do anything anymore. And like it honestly is working. But
Dang, I
whenever
might have
I
to check
do
that
get,
out because man, I've been having
Popcorn
some
over
back
here.
issues at least the last week or so. And
yeah,
I think
no,
like a
for
lot of
Yeah,
real.
stuff
a
you're
lot of
saying,
issues.
I used to do that stuff, and that's when the back stuff kind of went away, like weak hamstrings, especially
Yep.
like I used to have terrible posture, and then I started to learn it's about strengthening the muscles in your back to improve your
Mm-hmm.
posture, not just like people are like hold your shoulders back, and it's like it's not gonna stay there because those muscles are so weak and under strain.
Yep.
But
Gotta stretch your neck
Yeah,
out.
bro.
And whenever I'm on a fight camp, my workout does change a little bit. I still include my normal routine. I just have to add different things. So, like with this fight, it's a boxing fight. So, I have to focus a lot more on shoulder endurance, shoulder fatigue, a lot of core, a lot of leg, a lot of calf. So I have to do like a bunch of jump ropes. So like my workout the other day, let's see, I'll show you all a couple of my workouts.
Yeah, I like
To
that.
hold myself accountable, I always either write down what I do or I'll record my workouts and send it to my
We
gym
do that.
chat. Yep. It's
Peyton,
just
go over what you did this week.
I'll tell you. Which day? Which day do you want to know? I can tell you what
Monday
I did
through
Wednesday.
Saturday.
Rest day, workout. Rest day, workout. Rest day, rest day, rest day, rest day. Wait,
He's
I
trying
haven't
to get
logged.
good at
that-
resting.
I haven't logged the past couple of days, so let me do that while I'm here. Oh, rest day,
Rest day, rest day.
All right, so here's one of the workouts I did the other day. I did 10 minutes unbroken jump rope with 6 ounce
Hold up.
Was the goal to be unbroken, or did you do it unbroken?
You mean you didn't stop jumping rope the whole time?
Yeah, 10 minutes.
So it was like you never broke.
Shoo!
You did it 10 minutes straight.
10
Didn't
minutes
trip,
straight.
didn't stop.
So sometimes I'd step on the rope, but I just flick it around and keep going.
Hey,
It's about the rhythm,
That's
not
legit.
about it's
All right, do 10 minutes of unbroken double unders. I want to see that.
yeah, no, that's not happening.
Skilled.
So I had some weights in my hands while I was holding the jump rope, 10 minutes.
are you doing like single unders or speed steps?
Single.
Okay.
Well, see, I don't know what you call them, but like this is just something I picked up. So I stay on my toes. I never drop my heels. One, because like when you're fighting, your weight's always on your toes. If you drop your heels, you're flat-footed, you're slow. So I stay on my toes as I jump. I shuffle my weight from one foot to the other, and then I'll do doubles with it. And then back and forth, doubles.
Hopscotch.
It's like speed steps. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not necessarily only bouncing on one foot. I just put my weight on one foot, then to the other, then back and forth.
Yeah. That's
So
legit.
It's
You
pretty
beat
good.
all
So
of us at that.
Yeah, I
for
did
real.
10 minutes of that. And this was on my rest day, by the way, guys. So
Yeah, nothing big.
I
No big
have
deal.
gym Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursday nights are my dedicated date nights for my wife. So before
Brown
she
chicken,
gets
brown
back home
cow.
from work, I go to the gym and I'll get a workout in.
Lock them
Then
doors.
Friday nights I have gym, like MMA gym. And then I have Saturdays and Sundays. So the only days I'm actually in a weight gym is Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. So when I'm during a fight camp, like I really don't have time to just chill and relax and take a rest day. My rest days are I go to the gym and pedal on a bike for an hour and just sweat. Um, so this was last Sunday. This was technically a rest day, but I pushed a little harder because I took this fight a little shorter notice for this boxing camp. So I did 10 minutes jump rope and then took a 1 minute rest. Then 10 minutes where I took a weighted bar and 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, 10 rounds. I would explode the bar as fast and as hard as I can and then rest for 30 seconds.
So is that like on a bench or?
No,
Oh.
standing. So that was a
going at it.
10-pound bar.
That gym looks familiar.
Yeah, that gym does look familiar, don't it?
Oh, that's my bench rack right
Shout
there.
out to my sponsor from Fight Number One, Go Performance, for
Fitness
always
and health.
supporting your boy.
There we go.
Yeah, Go Performance,
that's
Fitness and
awesome.
Health, supporting the people.
It's for like all my videos are on my YouTube.
So I did that 10 rounds, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, just building up explosion in my shoulders, building up that endurance, be able to push through even the later times.
Hey, bro,
And then
come out in the fight like that. Just
Intimidation.
I don't know about these local fights, but I do know that like in the world level of boxing, you're not allowed to punch with both hands at the same time. So, yeah, you can't do that. I forget which fighter was it. Might have been.
doesn't seem efficient.
I think it was
Or
Manny
power.
I don't know,
Pacquiao.
man. Like you slap them on the ear like that, dude. Like, oh,
Yeah,
they're
see,
done. They're done.
Manny Pacquiao did that in a
Flashbang.
fight, and the ref called him on it because he
Dang.
reached up and hit with both hands at the same time, like hit around the guy, and they wouldn't stand for that. So I did that for 10 minutes, had a 1 minute break, and then I did a core stability move where I'm holding a wide plank, and then I take a 35-pound dumbbell and I just drag it from one side to the other. Let's see. Like so. Which
Man
works
got
a
the videos.
lot of stability.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that looks
he's ready.
that looks legit.
Yep.
Yeah,
You've been
you
taking
just
those
drag
from
it back and
Jarvis.
He's
forth.
been
Yeah. No, this
keeping
is
up with his Facebook story.
this is a guy on YouTube. His name is Phil DeRue.
Shout out, Phil.
Yeah,
Daru.
and he is
Doctor.
a MMA fitness coach. He has a lot of fight dedicated programs, and this is something I picked up from him watching some of his videos. It just builds a lot of stability in the core, a lot in the obliques, a lot
yeah.
in the back to stabilize because you're having to hold that wide plank while you're dragging that weight across. Um, so yeah, that's what a rest day workout looks like for me during fight camp.
No big deal.
Dang, son.
Bro
Lots of
has
cardio.
2 minutes
So-
of rest in that whole time.
So when you listen to
Yeah.
fighters a lot, you hear fight camp. Is that just like what you're saying? You're not actually going to camp. You're just preparing for a fight. That's like your prep, basically.
Yeah, that's all it is. You call it a
Okay.
fight camp, but all that is you
It's
have
just
your
like what you
normal
call it.
you have your normal off-season training. You show up to camp, you show up to the gym, you just work on like maybe areas you saw you were weak on in your last fight. You kind of build those up. You work on your weak spots. You just try to get better.
It's like a peaking
well-rounded.
phase.
Yeah, exactly. And
Max out.
Yep. And then as soon as you take a fight, you then train for specific goals that you want to accomplish in that fight. Such as if I was doing MMA, if I'm going against a guy who has better wrestling than me, then what I'm going to work on is my takedown defense. I'm going to work on fighting for top position and
Watching
goals
game
like
film?
that. Yeah, exactly. Watching a lot of game film, which is very important, especially for the mental training of fighting. You have to be able to visualize your opponent, and the only way to do that is by going and watching film, seeing what moves they like to throw, what punch do they always revert to. When they get tired, how do they
Here's my opponent.
respond? Yeah.
Hey, go ahead. I don't think you've punched him today. Go ahead and do it. Get him used to it.
Oh man, you can't be putting that out there. Oh,
Yo.
ding ding. Hey, so what?
Strong.
So this is your first boxing match, right?
Yes.
Like officially. What has made you transition from MMA to boxing?
To get uncomfortable because
Okay, something new, something
well,
different.
kind of sort of. So I was feeling real good about my striking, but like in my last fight, I just whenever I got under the moment, like I didn't want to throw my hands. I would throw ones and twos and I would step in and grab. And I just want to get better with my striking. So what better way to do that than to put yourself in a fight where the only choice you have is to strike. That way I don't revert back to my grappling abilities and I can actually just evolve myself as a fighter. The second part of that is also with the back injuries I've had. I don't want to go right back to MMA. That way there's no chance of like while I'm wrestling or something, somebody picks me up, throws me on the ground, tweaks something, injures something. It'll still let me stay active as a fighter, still grow as a fighter, but without risking, injuring so much of my back
Yeah.
as MMA would.
So is this like a
Smart.
permanent swap, or is this like while you're recovering through injuries and stuff? Just kind of.
I'm
Or
gonna
you
do
just gonna
boxing.
fill it out?
Yeah, I'm gonna fill it out. I've already committed to myself. I'm gonna at least do, 2 boxing matches. But
He's
who
going for
knows? I may
Mayweather.
really like it and stay with it for a little longer than I think.
Yeah, I like the
Yeah,
whole
for one of
trying
those.
things to fill it out. I ran 50 miles last month, and I've ran 2 this month. I didn't felt it out.
He's like,
Didn't
nah,
want to.
that ain't it.
Loser.
Hey, I've been
Jonathan,
sick
So,
for
I wanna
almost
dive-
4 weeks now. Leave me
I
alone.
want to dive into this fight a little bit more. So it's March 18th. Is that the fight date
Yeah, March 18th, Tupelo.
in
For the,
Tupelo? Okay,
You don't have to
TCB
pull
Fights
up.
promotion.
When is it?
March 18th.
y'all are gonna
Oh,
be
we're
gone.
out of
Yeah,
town.
man.
Dang.
Yeah,
Of course.
unfortunate. We'll be
There's a
in
lot
Atlanta.
happening on that day.
They'll be streaming that though. Y'all can catch it online.
Sweet.
What time is it gonna be? It's gonna be in the evening, right? By 5,
Yeah,
6
it'll be in the
o'clock.
evening.
We'll have a lot of
they
free
usually
time that
start around
Yeah.
6 o'clock And so
I'll run my
I don't.
beast, and we'll go back to the hotel room and watch it.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
So,
we're doing the Spartan
who's
race
your
that weekend.
opponent?
So,
His name is CJ Randall. He is a boxer out of Oxford. That's where he trains at. It's a gym in Oxford. He's a pretty experienced boxer. He's 4-2. He's had 6 boxing matches. Um, as they only gave me 2 choices for my debut. That was either a 4-2 at 135, 140, or take a 0-1 boxer who is 1-2 in MMA, and he would be walking in at 155. And I thought it was, for my goals, I would much rather fight a much more experienced guy who's actually in my weight than a bigger
Yeah.
guy who is not as experienced, because he's just going to go in there and muscle through it. And since this
being
is kind of like
uncomfortable.
Oh,
my
that's kind of smart.
yeah
Yeah, I mean it's a big risk
safety
because
wise.
you know if
It is.
you win this, it's gonna be, or we'll put it out there. When you win this, it's gonna be a
Yeah.
big step. Like you're
Yeah.
skipping a whole bunch of steps that probably would have been having
Yeah.
to take,
There's
like
gonna be a
fighting someone
bounty on
who's
your head
more.
then.
Yeah, they're
Well,
gonna be
and
like, all right.
especially for a guy like myself, whose striking was never my go-to. Striking was never in the game plan for my fighting. This is a big step, and like I would venture to say, like, when it comes to my portfolio of fighting, like on paper, I am not a striker. My only 2 wins in MMA were both submissions, and I lost all my fights to better strikers. And here I am debuting, going against a guy who's won 4 fights, lost 2, and I'm gonna come at it full force. I've got a really good game plan, and I honestly just feel so comfortable with this matchup. Um, Not comfortable in the sense of like being lazy with it. I mean, like
Yeah,
watching the film, seeing this guy box. Like I've seen him box in person a couple times. He's a good fighter, uh, but there's lots of openings I see, lots of things that
Uh-oh.
I pick apart that
Slip
I
ups.
know with my skills and with my team that it can it can happen, and it's very likely to happen that I can actually finish this guy. Um, but the biggest thing that's going to be found out on that day is my mental, if I can actually follow through with all
See what
this or
it's like
not.
when you get hit in the face.
Yeah, exactly.
with a boxing glove.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like
What size
I'm
gloves are y'all
known
wearing?
10 ounces.
Oh snap! This is real deal.
Oh yeah. The way they split it up is anybody below 155 is 10 ounces. Everything above is 12 ounces.
So after
Which,
boxing, are you gonna try to some bare knuckle fights?
I've thought about at least once, but I don't think my wife would let me do that.
You come home, you're like one side's like twice the size of your other half of your
Mushroom
Well, I
face.
mean,
head.
that's
Like,
what I looked like in
yeah.
my last MMA fight, anyways.
Gonna look like
Let
one of
me,
those zombies from The Last of Us.
let me pull a picture up for you guys.
Have a fungus looking face.
Yeah,
got
how does she
shrooms
feel
on her
about
face.
you fighting? I'm sure
Yeah,
that's like, oh snap.
that was the last
She said,
fight.
"Ooh, that's my man."
Hey, your eye ain't supposed to look like that, dog.
Yeah, no, it was not.
Hey, what kind of dog you got in you? You like a English Mastiff kind of dog, or you like a Belgian Malinois? What you got?
That man's a pit bull.
I'm
What
thinking
you
more
a
like a what do
beagle?
you call the very intelligent species that the police force like to use?
Belgian
German
Malinois, German
Shepherd?
Yeah,
Shepherd,
that's it.
German
Not the German
Shepherd.
Shepherd, but the Belgian. Yeah.
Oh,
Waffle.
so you like you got the dog in you. Okay.
Well, see, I'm not a brute force fighter. I never have been. I don't have the build for it. I'm 6 foot. I walk around at like 155. I'm a slimmer guy. I don't have just a physical build to just go in and use brute force. So
So you like
I
a
have
Belgian Malinois that's been fed once a day. Okay.
well, no, like those are more streamlined dogs. They're very smart, but they're still aggressive, and
Don't mess
they
with them.
just Yeah, there's yeah. So I'm an intelligence fighter. I find the weak points. I find the strategies. I find the techniques that make things work. The things I've been working on lately is being more aggressive with it. Not trying to just look nice with my technique, but use the technique with no regard to how it looks, but more regard to how much damage it can provide. And working on my explosiveness, working
Drink
on my
C4.
ability to push explosiveness for a longer period of time. So, with being the coach at my gym, I have curriculums that I teach. I have a 2 week cycle where I will stay on one portion of fighting for 2 weeks. We will do lots of drilling on that specific portion of fighting, and then we will start into our sparring session. So, whenever I found out we were going to be doing I was going to be doing the boxing match, which I also have one of my youth who are going to be competing the same night.
Oh, that's
Well, who's going
awesome.
to be fighting the same night? Yeah, he's 12 years old, and that's what I was talking about on day one. He's had that dog in him, and
Get
so
that
he's also
dog.
going against a much more experienced boxer.
From
But
30
You
year old.
I
inspired him.
have yeah. So I I've been changing our curriculum to a lot more striking based. Lot of just building up a good boxing core. And with that, I have found out a lot about where we have lacked, um, not mentally, but lacked aggressively as a team. And been working on that, building the ability to use your punches not to just touch, but actually like push through. Like use those punches
Knock
to
'em
actually
out.
cause some damage, sit into it, push, which a big shout out to Joshua Weems and Jonathan Jackson. Those are two professional fighters, probably the top of the game in Mississippi for their weight classes. They allowed me to come get some cross training with them while I was in Jackson on a business trip 2 weeks ago. Went down there, was cross training with them. They showed me some drills, showed me some techniques, and I've been using those since. I'm getting a huge payout from that just with my game, with my ability to perform, even over the course of longer rounds, longer period of time. Like I'm still able to keep speed on my punches, keep some power on my punches, and sink into it a little better. So those guys are great, fantastic guys. Um, Fun fact: my second fight was against Joshua Weems' younger brother, Robert Weems, and that was the one who whooped my butt for a whole round and a half until I ducked the kick. Um, and I will say, on that night, I was not their friend. Um, they were calling me many names that my
Oh
wife
man.
was not happy about.
Oh, she was jumping
But
up like, wait, what'd y'all say?
yeah, but since then, they've just been fantastic people, like good friends, always supportive, and always open to just helping me out, helping everybody out, honestly. So shout out to them for that. But I'm very excited about this fight coming up, and um, actually, that's something I wanted to talk about today was excitement, right?
Yay.
Because used to,
We're excited.
yeah, well, used to, whenever I would think about
Wee!
fighting, like I would get that adrenaline. I would.
I was thinking the same thing, Peyton.
So whenever I would take a fight or something like that, like I'd instantly get the jitters, the adrenaline would start hitting, and anytime I thought about fighting, it would give me anxiety, right? Like I wanted to fight, but it would still give me anxiety. um, and one thing I learned whenever I was getting my certification in sports psychology was that the human brain does not know the difference between thinking and doing. The other thing with that is the human brain uses the same part of the brain to respond to excitement as it does to fear. But you are the only person who is in control of how your brain interprets that. So a cool tool that I learned is anytime you start to feel nervous, anytime you start to feel anxiety, anytime you start to feel fear, you can't lie to yourself and say, well, I'm not afraid, because your body feels that. Your entire nervous system is responding to that. And you can't lie to yourself. But what you can do is reprogram your brain to interpret it differently. So now, anytime I start to feel that feeling of like, oh man, like I'm going to fight, I instantly start saying, like, oh yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. Because what you're doing then is you're reprogramming your brain to take that feeling and put it to a positive energy and not to a negative energy. So instead of allowing it to create fear, anxiety, depression, I'm now using it to produce excitement,
Let's
uh,
go.
vigor, desire. It like just it really changes a
Fuel.
lot of the way you're going to react to things. And then back to the other thing about your brain doesn't know the difference between thinking and doing. That's the reason when we play through scenarios in our head, our body releases adrenaline. It's because your brain does not know how to differentiate your thoughts from your actions. And that's where visualization comes in as an important tool for any athlete, such as a lift. Let's say you're going for a big lift, but you're nervous,
Yes,
like,
sir.
man, what if I do the movement wrong? Right?
Like doing
Well,
a
there's only
clean.
so many lifts you can get in a day when you're at the gym
Wrist.
without destroying your body. Same as me, there's only so many rounds I can get in the gym at the end of the day before my body just gives out. But what I can do in all my free time and leading up to it is I can visualize my goals. And that was something I didn't realize that I was naturally gifted at until much later, is to be able to visualize on a 3D spectrum. So in my head, I can already create scenarios where I'm seeing these things play out in my head, and I can respond to them in first person and visualize how I react. Because then what happens when you're in the moment, your brain doesn't think, oh man, I don't know what to do here. I
Been
haven't
there.
done this before. Your brain says, oh, we already know what to do. We've been here 1,000 times before. Those are the mental reps. And that's what visualization is for. So, like for this fight, I went and studied this guy's moves. I've studied the punches he likes to throw, the footwork he likes to use, the angles, like every portion of him as a fighter. And what I do anytime I'm not in the gym training or I'm just sitting around not doing anything, I'm using that time to mentally prepare myself by in my head creating the scene, letting my brain create him as a character using those moves he likes to use. And then in my head, I work through the process of how I will react when it happens. So when I get to that fight and I see he wants to use these moves, my brain's like, oh, we already know how to deal with this. We already know what to do here. We know the answer for this problem. My brain's not stressing, panicking because it doesn't know what to do under stress. Because when you're under stress, your brain is not going to give you the ability to have that freedom to think, to create. Your brain has two functions: create and survive. And you can only create when you're comfortable. You can only create when you're in a relaxed state. When you're under stress, your brain goes straight to survival mode. And that's when muscle memory kicks in, when the programming kicks in. So that's a huge portion of mental training, is being able to sit down, visualize what is going to happen, react to it, respond to it, and create those good connections in your brain so that when it happens, you don't have to think about it. Your body already responds because you've done it 1,000 times in your head.
So on
Where
that,
have you gotten this knowledge like from? You say you don't read that much, but this is like
I mean, I read,
He
but
made
it's
it
not
up.
maybe.
he
I
taught
read,
himself.
but I don't grab a book and I just sit there and read through a book.
Do like
Like I do a
audio?
lot of research. I do a lot of
Okay.
case studies. I do a lot of where I will find so like during my certification for sports psychology, one thing that I had to do
Certified.
was yeah, I mean yeah, it was an accomplishment of mine. Very proud of that. So um one thing I had to do is do case studies on performances and find where people were able to overcome these mental barriers and things like that. And a part of that is I found this doctor who you can subscribe to his email, and then what he'll do is every couple weeks he'll send out an email breaking down one portion of the mental side of athletics, and he will give it a case study each time about like where that actually works, where that actually pays off. And it's just like you pick up little things here and there. It's kind of like lifting in the gym. Day one, you don't know what you're doing. You walk in, you see all the different equipment. You walk in, you see all the people doing these different kind of movements, and you're like a little overwhelmed because you don't know what's going to work for you. What do you need to do? But the more time you spend in it, the more you try things, the more you start to pick up and you learn about, okay, this exercise actually works, this exercise actually accomplishes the goals I need to do. And sports psychology is the same way. Your brain, you can train your brain just like you can train your body. Focus training is something that I've been doing lately. Something as simple as sitting down, picking one object to focus on for as long as you can without letting other thoughts distract you helps you be able to retain that focus, like when you're fighting, when you have unexpected things happening. Because, like in a fight, you have the person in front of you you're trying to fight, and he's doing his thing. You have your corner yelling at you. You have their corner
A lot of stuff.
yelling at them. You're trying to listen to that so that you can kind of prepare for what his corner is trying to tell him to do, while also trying to listen to your corner, while also trying to watch the guy who's in front of you so you don't get punched in the face. Then you have the crowd who's being loud. They're yelling things, they're booing, they're clapping, they're some are supporting you, some are talking you down,
Some are fighting.
some are fighting. Oh yeah, guys, local fights. If you go to a local fight card, 8 out of 10 times there's going to be a fight in the crowd, and some of those are more fun than the fights that happen actually up in the cage. Um, so yeah, like focus is a big thing, especially for fighting. But that's for any athletic performance at all. Running focus is important. You got to be able to focus on your breathing, focus on your strides, um, focus on your tempo. Whenever you're lifting weights, you have to focus on the precision of your lift. You have to focus on the correct posture, the correct intent, the tightness of your core to brace for the weight. Like there's lots of times where focus comes in handy, and you can train focus just like you can train any other part, and it's just reps, doing repetitions. So that's something I've been experimenting with lately. Something I picked up from a sports psychiatrist is just pick one object and sit there and stare at it. Try and focus on that object alone for as long as you can, with no other thoughts except for just that one thing. And it starts to get easier the more you do it. The more reps you get in, just like going out and running. The more you run, the easier that 1 mile gets. Then you start working on 2 miles. The more you run those 2 miles, the easier the 2 miles get. Your brain, you can train
I
your
don't know,
brain, you can
man.
train your mental. Yeah, I don't
Bro,
know.
it's
And once
like
you start speeding it up, it's
depends
like,
on
ooh.
yeah. Like you can just go slow on the 1 mile. If you're like PR in that 1 mile, it hurts every time. Gosh, but yeah.
Every single time. My best friend during fight camps, well, actually, my best friend, period, because I hate running. I hate the boredom of running. So what I do instead is the stair climber. I love the stair climber. I don't know why that's my go-to over running.
It hurts.
Uh, so I do the same thing for like the stair climbing. That's my go-to. I love it. Um, Builds a lot more in the conditioning of my legs than treadmill does or just road work does for me. Just
It's
that
hard.
constant. Yeah, it's
Immediately.
hard. Yeah,
Kind of like
you
the
don't even
assault
have
bike.
to go fast. I do this assault bike too, but I use that for like my um, interval training. So I'll use the stair climber for
Oh,
like
yeah.
my longer cardios, but I'll use the assault bike for when I'm doing like interval, uh,
Yeah.
like burst explosion training. I love
Man,
it.
that's all you can do.
Yeah, that's all you can
It's like,
do.
bro, I'm done with this.
So yeah, lots of mental. And I'll tell you, the hardest mental thing about fighting is the fight camp diet.
Ew, I don't like diets.
Just
Yeah.
go over that really
So
quick.
yeah, I'll try to go over that quick. So uh since I did a big portion of my like athleticness in a gym scenario before I started the martial arts. I actually was a certified personal trainer before I ever started the MMA stuff. So, with my history of knowing proper diets and things like that, I was able to use that when I got to fighting. So, my fight diet usually consists of just low carb, um, calorie deficit. One thing I've changed for this fight camp
What? You
that
got to
I've
go
done,
into a calorie deficit to lose weight?
yeah,
It's crazy. It's
crazy how it
almost
works,
like it
right?
makes sense, you know?
Eat
You
less,
want to
weight
lose
less.
weight, don't eat so much.
Yeah.
Even works for
So,
you being lighter weight.
I mean, it still works. So, like, I've been on my official fight diet for 2 weeks, and I had last week or this week from Monday to now, I've lost 3 pounds. And then the week before that, I lost 5. But the first 5 are always the easiest to lose because that's like just the junk that's in your stomach, all the sugar that's in the food, stuff like that.
Turds.
Once you have that first week of eating clean, like you'll lose 5 pounds easy.
What are you
That's when you
eating,
kind
though?
of plateau. All right, so um, breakfast, I'll just have some fruit, just a little kick in the morning. I'll have my energy, not in the mornings. All right, so
What kind of fruit
just a
is it?
little.
Like a banana?
No, I like oranges.
Just
Lots of vitamin
oranges.
C. Yeah,
Oranges. It's a fun
yeah.
word. Orange.
Uh, so then I'll have that. Drink lots of water all during the day. My lunch. This is something new I've been doing for this fight camp, and I'm loving it. I do an oatmeal lunch because oatmeal, even though it is a carb, it is a seed-based carb. So it's lots of fiber, has healthy proteins, healthy fats, but it also has long lasting carbs. Because used to in all my other fight camps, I would just go straight low carb. What would happen is by the time I get to the end of the day and I show up at the gym to train, my body is so fatigued. I'm so drained. I have cravings all the time, headaches, all that, and I just push through it. Um, but this time I'm having much better success with that oatmeal at lunch because it gives me just enough energy for me to push through the classes at night. But I'm still in a low calorie because half a cup of oatmeal is only 180 calories. When you get just the plain rolled oatmeal, not the instant packets. Like this is big tub of Quaker non-GMO
Like
organic stuff you buy.
whole oats?
Yep. Yeah, whole oats, man. That's the way to go. So what
I
I'll
do
do
like the
is,
1 minute oats.
yeah, I mean that's fine. I try and go as clean as I can when I'm on my fight diets. So I'll use half a cup of oatmeal. I'll throw some erythritol in there, which
Sweetener.
is it's a 0 calorie sweetener that uses fruit um, fruit sugar, and that way it's all organic, completely clean. Throw that in there. I'll throw in a quarter cup of mixed nuts. That way I get those healthy fats, and all the extra protein. And so my lunch, I'm maybe hitting 500 calories. And
That's
then
brutal.
my dinners are always clean proteins, so chicken or fish, with a vegetable side and a clean carb side. My go-to for carbs is quinoa, high in fiber, good protein, low carb count. My vegetables, I usually mix it up. I always try and keep it green. Greens are better for you. They last longer, give you better vitamins. And then the portions for it is I'll do half the plate in protein, quarter vegetable, quarter carb, and the weight just falls off. But that oatmeal, I'm telling you, some of my friends, some of the guys in the gym are hating on me because they're like, oatmeal's just so boring. But I tell you, man, I feel so good right now with my weight cut. Um, Still able to get good training in and not
I,
have any issues with
I
mood
eat plain
swings,
oatmeal,
cravings.
but I put some sugar free sweeteners in there, some cinnamon.
Yeah, see, I do cinnamon. Sometimes I'll throw some honey in there. Make sure you add the raw honey at the end, though. That way you get all those, probiotics. You're not cooking them out in the microwave.
Smart.
Very, very low calorie. I mean, I'm maybe hitting 1,000 calories a day.
Yeah, bro. And you're doing all that fight training, bro? That's
Yeah,
brutal.
but it's isolated training. So like, this is something I learned since now that I've taken over, instructing the classes. The way I build my classes, we have a warm up that is dedicated for martial arts. This is something I just started swapping to. The previous gym environment, we would just run at the beginning of classes. And I mean, we'd spend maybe 15 minutes just running laps around the mats.
Right.
But like, that's 15 minutes you could be dedicating to something else to actually help you get better as a martial artist. So I started changing how I do that. I now do warm up cardio that is isolated, like movement drills or isolated technique drills, things that still warm your body up, still get you some cardio, but you're still progressing as a martial artist at the same time. So we'll do about 15 minutes of that at the beginning of class. Then I do technique drills isolated for what the curriculum would be for that section. So, like, this week has been power punching and speed punching drills. So, for a couple rounds, we are doing combos full power. And then for a couple combos, we're doing full speed. And that way, we're learning how to alternate our power punches and our speed punches. And then towards the end of class, I will start building up isolation sparring drills where I'm not just throwing everybody immediately to the dogs. Because this is a problem a lot of people have. And this is what I was talking about, survival versus creativity. If I teach you how to do something and then immediately add intensity, you're not going to be able to perform the same way. So what I
Preaching.
do is,
Problem with CrossFit.
yeah, I bring in the lesson and we scale up with that. The intensity of your brain is like way up here because your brain is having to learn something new. It's having to
Oh yeah.
try and react to what's going on. Over time, that'll start desensitizing and that starts coming down, right? But if I bring the intensity immediately up to 100, your brain is no longer desensitizing. It's right back to being like, oh crap, like I need to survive. And you're not going to be able to perform the same way where we were learning. So what I do is I scale up our intensity. We will start with just drills where we have to focus on one thing, like lead hand sparring, where the only punch I can throw is with my hand that's in the front. That way I know the person I'm going against, they can only throw that one punch. I only got one thing to worry about. That's my one goal is just to watch that hand, react to that hand. And then I'll start scaling it up. I'll add more pieces to the game so we have more things to look for, more things to worry about. So that by the time we get to the end and we're full on sparring, my brain has already desensitized and is used to the intensity getting a little higher, a little higher, a little higher.
Warm up.
Then you have less incidents where you create PTSD in a class setting because somebody joins in, they don't know what they're doing. They're going against somebody who's been training for 6 months, a year, 2 years. And as soon as the round starts, they get punched in the face and they're like, crap, I can't do anything. My body won't respond. And it's because you didn't spend that time
Peyton.
desensitizing, allowing their brain to realize they're not in danger, that they could actually perform.
Yeah, that kind of applies to fitness too, because if you like just go out, like even just go into like a CrossFit workout or a
Yep.
fast run, like you're gonna blow up quick because you're not warmed up and your body's like, I'm finna die. But if you like slowly build up to that intensity, you know, you can kind of handle it and your body's ready for it. And you got the, you know, it's just, I mean, fighting as fitness too. So
Yeah, absolutely.
that is a common thing though that we hear. I don't know if you'll see it a lot nowadays. You and I gonna see it at in Kane's class, but like a lot of people, they're just gonna not even hardly know the technique of stuff and just go balls to the wall, and that's how you kind of get hurt. So you kind of have to slow down and learn the ins and outs of what you're doing before you can add intensity to it, build the base.
And a lot of that's a pride thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody wants to hold themselves back.
Yeah.
Right? The typical male ego, we walk in the gym,
correct.
we're like, I want to lift lots of weight. So you grab the heaviest weight
Trevor.
you can do. Your reps are sloppy. And then in a couple months, you're like, why do I have tendonitis?
Or the next day,
things like
you're
that.
like, crap, what is going on?
Bleeding out the butt.
Yeah.
Oh. You don't know that story?
Yeah.
I don't think I want to know that story.
I mean, basically, don't take too much ibuprofen and do a heavy lift. So that's the moral of the story.
I had a buddy, he
maxed out.
He went too heavy on like a deadlift and like he herniated his
I was probably close to that. That's about what I did. I did
Sounds brutal.
deadlift, and then, you know, without being graphic, just went home, used the bathroom, looked down. Holy crap, there's blood in there. But also taking too much. I learned taking too much ibuprofen, especially if you don't use it specifically for like swelling purposes. Like, you know, sometimes you're like, oh, I got a headache.
Yep.
Like, let me just take some ibuprofen.
Yep.
But that can really mess up because it's like it regulates like blood in your system. So only use it when you need it, everybody.
Peyton, what are you doing, bro? He just mouthed something. He's just practicing talking.
Oh wow, I was freaking muted.
Oh.
Hey, I was gonna say, like, did you let that blood go to waste, or did you like reuse it?
What are you talking about? I don't know.
What?
It's in the toilet. What are you talking about?
Yeah, you can just mute yourself again, Peyton.
Just don't
I'll be right back.
He's gone.
Oh man.
But yeah,
man, it's been a great talk.
Yeah, for real. Learned a lot today. I just want to go to the gym now and do some stuff.
Like, there are certain points where you were talking into the mental game, and I was like, bro, I want to go run through a wall. I'm like, because I have this. I'm doing the Open right now, the CrossFit Open, and it's like, it's kind of like it's my fight. You know, I got to go in there and attack this workout properly and be mentally there. I'm excited. Like I've been nervous, but I've been fueling that nervousness, like, because I'm excited at the same time. So like, I know it's gonna hurt, and I'm ready for that. And it's just like, man, I'm ready to go do this and hurt. I'm ready to make it hurt, basically. But yeah, man, it's pumping me up. I'm glad you came on. I just saw your post the other day, and I was like, let's have him on. Like literally within 5 minutes, you were gonna be on. So,
dude,
we were talking about having Roger on.
Yeah, Peyton had already told me like a couple weeks ago that, you know, if I wanted to go in there and talk about the gym, talk about fighting stuff, you know, y'all would have me. And of course, I'm completely honored just to be on here.
We were about 45 minutes in, and I texted Trevor and was like, hey, bro, let's push past our normal stopping point because we haven't even got it. Like, you were talking, I looked down at the watch, and it had been 45 minutes, and I felt like
Bro.
we hadn't even started
Yeah,
yet.
barely.
So
I got our
you
chat
kept-
muted, so I've been like looking at the phone, like let's see if they've said something yet.
yeah, bro. We usually go about hour 15. So
Oh,
this has been
dang.
2 hours and 5 minutes.
If that,
But it's
like,
perfect, bro. It's perfect because you
Yeah.
brought a lot to the table.
Yeah.
but well, there is one more thing to ask. We ask all of our guests. this,
Yeah,
you know.
he's gonna say it, bro. I always expect Trevor to ask.
What are some like looking past this upcoming fight? What is
One
what are
thing.
some goals you got coming up post that fight? You know, is there any
One big goal if you can come up with
Just-
one.
For the year. Yeah.
just
And we'll check back with you
All right, one big goal. If I had to set one big goal
for this year.
it could be
It might be
anything,
this fight.
but
You know?
fitness. Yeah.
It's like coming to this fight.
to place gold in a grappling tournament, because since my back issues, I haven't been able to go do one of my jits tournaments, and since then I've got my purple belt, and so I haven't been able to compete as a purple belt. So I guess probably the biggest goal for me is to go place first at a grappling tournament.
Heck yeah, man. That's solid.
Nice. Solid. Where can we find you at? Like, what's your Instagram and whatever?
On Facebook,
Facebook.
as Jordan Howell, and I'm on Instagram as JoJo _1_1_SIX.
You got all the underscores.
Number 6.
When's your fight? Where is it at? What's the ticket? Where you get the tickets?
It's March 18th, 2023. It'll be in Tupelo, Mississippi.
1 month
for
from
the
today.
TCB fight promotion. They will have tickets on sale online. I believe they typically do that. I think general admission is usually $35. I will usually have tickets in hand also. Just don't have those yet. But if you follow me on my social media, I always post it there and keep people updated.
Heck yeah, bro. We're looking excited for it.
Heck
We're probably all
yeah.
just going to have to like live stream it because that's a busy day. But
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
We all have
unfortunately, me and
commitments
Dylan
that
won't
day.
be
I
here.
know, it's crazy.
And
Big day for all of us. So,
Awesome.
Yes, sir.
But we'll have
Well,
to-
when you close your browser, don't close your browser. Let it load.
yeah.
you got to wait for your recording to upload. So
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I got you. I understand what you're
Yeah,
saying.
no worries.
Yeah,
but
that'll be just
we'll
after
definitely
we-
have to get you on again because there's definitely some stills, some stuff within the fight game that I want to learn more about and
Yeah.
dive back. And also, we can
Yeah.
see how this fight went, see what you learned from it. Being
Yeah, we can bring you back after.
Yeah, and I'll have some footage too.
oh yeah, that'd be awesome.
Like I
Yeah.
said, they always stream it.
Heck
So we
yeah.
can pull up some video. I can break down the fight.
Heck
Stuff
yeah,
like that.
we can do that on here too.
Yep.
you
Crazy.
can do
We've
it.
never
You
done
can
that.
do it at the church. Have the big screen with the fight on it, and then just swap back and forth with the camera, man.
Yeah. I'm down
See,
for it.
This is where I farted.
Oh,
You can see me bounce off the mat a little bit. It wasn't from the mat. It was from, you know.
Yep. Flashback to my second fight.
Dang.
He had the
Yep.
run. She was a vegan for that fight.
All right. So, pro tip: after your weight cut, do not go eat chili cheese tots from
Oh my
Subway.
Doesn't sound
gosh.
smart.
Nope, was not smart.
It sounds good, not smart.
My thought the first round was just don't poop your pants in front of all these
Oh
people.
man.
That's me every time
At
I
least you
squat in
still
the
won.
morning.
You don't
Yeah.
squat.
Oh yeah, you're right. I forgot.
Peyton, where can we find you, bro?
Peyton.cook on Instagram, and then good luck finding me everywhere else.
Just look for the
Tinder.
picture.
Yeah, if you find me on Tinder, please like. I may or may
Give
not
them in
like
the
back.
super like.
Yeah, super
I
swipe
don't
that
know
thing.
what that's about.
I know a little bit too much about it.
And in there, Trevor, where you at, bro?
Yeah, just Trev on everything. And then
Just Trev,
just
bro.
Trev. Pretty much.
We got Dilly Young over here.
Yeah, at Deal the Young, I'm dropping content a lot during the open.
CrossFit Open.
Yep.
Yeah, man, y'all just check it out. And yeah, Beast Mode episode, and we look
This
forward
is
to
a good
seeing
one,
y'all.
man.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
Every time I've coughed, it's made my bladder jump. I've been
He's burped
Secretly.
multiple times. Yeah, so we'll put work in podcast. We drop it every Monday. Might have to start amping that up. We're going to dive into the shorts for the next few months, and
Yeah, we
we'll
got
see y'all next
YouTube,
week.
Spotify.
Here's an idea. Maybe all three of y'all come get some content putting in a class at my gym.
Yeah,
Ooh,
Yeah,
for
man,
real. I was
that
thinking
sounds
about the
vlog
same
a
thing.
That's
fight,
uncomfortable.
bro. Vlog a fight.
We have to all come at the same time.
Yep. All or
Yeah,
nothing.
it'd be hilarious.
Let's just all three get beat up by a 12-year-old.
For real. Just flips us on
He'll
the
do it,
mat.
man.
Hey, what's
Dang,
up, bro?
bro. Can we even fight a 12-year-old? I feel like that's child abuse.
Within the
Not if they're
gym.
beating you
I-
up.
The parents pay me to do it, so
Oh, they signed a waiver. It's okay.
They're like,
Yeah,
please
exactly.
beat them up.
set them straight, please.
I'm gonna send my 2-year-old and 6-month-old up there.
Boom, boom.
He gonna go and headbutt the bag and get knocked out.
All right, everybody. That's a wrap for
It's a
today.
wrap.
We'll
It's a
see y'all
wrap.
next week.
See
Peace
y'all.
out.